very soon after I started my transition, I met a guy on a dating app who seemed pretty nice. I don't often find myself attracted to men, but this one was alright, so we hooked up. He told me that I was even prettier in person, everything seemed to go as well as it could when I'm with a guy, and then afterwards he asks me, "Nobody in your family is Jewish, are they?" I say, "No," and he proceeds to go on some vague monologue that I don't remember the details of, but seemed to be alluding to your typical anti-Semitic garbage. So, yeah, I tend to have a problem with feeling uncomfortable in intimate situations, doubly so when it's a man. So I wasn't in the best mental position to pry into this at the moment, not to mention being in this guy's house as a newly hatched egg. So I keep quiet and just let him go on. As he's walking me to my car, he tells me that he likes to subtly red pill people over time. The red pill, of course, referring to converting someone to far-right ideology. Now, I might not be the expert manipulator that this guy was, but somehow I feel like "nobody in your family is Jewish, are they?" isn't actually a very subtle move, nor is telling someone that you're trying to indoctrinate them. I sent him a text when I got home outright asking, "Are you anti-Semitic?" And he never responded, so I guess I scared him off. But what I want to talk about is the difference in how men and women tend to view intimate encounters. See, he knew full well that I'm a communist. It was the first line in my dating app bio. I'm pretty open about it. And foolish me thought that anyone interested in me would be left-leaning or at least apolitical, which I would consider more just politically unconscious, but that's a different tangent. Instead, homie decided to hide the fact that he was a reactionary until afterwards, and then immediately tell me that he was manipulating me. For some people, being with a partner who holds the opposite political and therefore ethical views might not be a problem. I've seen these interactions between white, suburban, married couples where the husband will say some awful junk about minorities or women, and the wife will go, "I can't stand when he gets like this. What do you want for dinner?" For these people, I think that politics just aren't very important to them. It's more like a sport. They don't have or don't recognize that they have any serious connection to these issues. But for me, it's an important matter. It's the lens through which I view the world. And I think it was the same with this guy I was with. But while I'm revolted by the idea of being with my ideological opposite, he seemed to revel in it. And that difference was difficult at the time to wrap my head around. I'm speaking in generalizations here. There are always exceptions, but I think for men, intimate encounters are often treated as conquest. If you get her in bed, you win. You defeated her. But for women, there's often an element of giving part of yourself over, intense vulnerability. There are so many ways that you could look at this dichotomy: culture, political economy, religion, history, evolutionary biology. One component that you could examine is that there's just more physical risk associated with the women's position. Horror movies have often explored these themes: being pursued by or trapped with someone stronger than you, traumatic insertion, the trauma of childbirth, nobody believing you. Of course, there are the specific politics at play. Reactionary ideology is associated with upholding patriarchy, so the proud conquest of women might have been right at home with that guy. I've heard 4chan types say that they would love to, quote, bag a commie chick. But communists would be chastised if they said the inverse, because we're supposed to be unlearning those things. I had a male friend a few years ago who was steadily drifting more to the left towards socialism, but one day, he told me that he was thinking of hooking up with a staunch Republican, something I increasingly hear women say that they refuse to do because of the erosion of bodily autonomy. This friend of mine was a self-described bodily autonomy absolutist and talked about it a lot, yet it didn't seem to factor into his decision to be with someone trying to dismantle it. The political angle I'm coming from might be a little niche for some folks, but I think the core idea is sound. That men are generally more comfortable going to bed with someone they have fundamental problems with. In its most extreme forms, you see it manifest as sexual violence against women they hate. Consider how often you see conservatives aggressively fantasizing about the things they do to AOC or even friggin' Greta Thunberg. Meanwhile, The idea of even touching someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or Kamala Harris makes me want to crawl out of my skin. The perspective I have is hardly anything radical. It's just a roundabout way of describing how men who sleep with a lot of people are considered impressive, whereas women who do the same thing are seen as shameful. When telling stories like this, I've had people put the blame on me, asking why I would ever have a hookup in the first place. The reason being that I'm just not attracted to men in a serious emotional way. But is it too much to ask to want someone to respect me if they're going to be with me? Are you done with your peanut butter? It's fun, Nick respects me.